Board games, board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games with Bodie, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And over here to this side of me is the person who's not a Netherlander, but they're called Bodie. Bodie is really an Australian who came from Australia to Netherlands. Bodie draws all sorts of things, which you will see a few of after I stop singing. And we're going to talk about board games and RPGs and illustration. It's what I'm talking about. Board games and fancy illustration and RPGs. I'm not going to shout. Hello and good morning and good afternoon, good night, good whatever it is, wherever you are. And this is episode 328 of Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. I'm streaming at 10 a.m. UK time for the next 72 days every day, and then I'll have a wee bit of break before I come back. And today, special guest, Bodie. Hello, Bodie.
Hello.
Thank you very much for agreeing to join me. And yeah, Bodie is an individual that I met via Instagram. I saw someone else tweeting about this tiny choose your own adventure book, and I was like, oh, that just looks so cute and it's just so lovely. And then I reached out. I was a wee bit worried about the whole kind of Brexit thing because I'd been told that there's now a minimum entry tariff of 0. So basically, if anything has any value at all, then I think they're meant to hold it. And I don't fully understand. It's a bit worrying, to be honest. But then I said, hey, if I do something, I said, what if I pay you to send it to someone else and I pay you like £1 or £2 more to send me a digital version? And then, oh, don't worry about it. I'll just send you a copy and you can consider it payments if you just tell me how it went over. And it just came into our letterbox. So that was brilliant. Apparently, at least in this one instance, it might be because it's actually got the same size and width as a normal paper envelope. Maybe also, now I think about it, books are meant to be tax exempt in the UK, VAT exempt. So if you clearly mark them as books, I should have thought of this at the time. I only just thought of this right now, because if you clearly mark it at books, I don't know how it is in EU, but in the UK that isn't that is VAT exempt. Do you know is there exemption in the EU?
Specifically in the Netherlands, I know that books come under a different tax thing, but I think it's 10% instead of 21 or something. But yeah, I think you're right though.
If I were sending it over to the Netherlands, then, or I guess whatever the points of entry, even if they have like a 5%, that still might mean that the book gets held in theory, and it's just what we have to deal with these days. And hello to fellow Netherlander Yoda. It is lovely to see. Well, again, this is not actually a Netherlander. But you are an Australian, you're a fantasy illustrator, you draw pretty little things. What else would you like people to know about you right now before we move on?
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know if I need people to know anything particular. I make mostly like TTRPG content. That's sort of the main thing I do, but then I like to keep, no, I don't want to like pigeonhole myself too much. So I like to make like little books like the one we've been talking about and general fantasy stuff too. But the binding sort of overall thing is generally fantasy, which I really love.
And hello, Hal. It is lovely to see you as well. And so, having introduced our lovely guest, let us talk about Recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So, yesterday, and hello, DNTHMQ. Lovely to see you as well. And thank you for joining the stream. I hope that I do have the right things. And today we're going to be talking about what have you been up to. Just for the next 5 minutes, what have you been up to recently? I did do a wee bit of comic book reading. I read Sam and Fuzzy. If you are familiar with the webcomic Sam and Fuzzy, this is a print edition of some of the earlier comics. And then on the other side, you've got a couple of Skull Panda comics, which aren't seen elsewhere. It's really lovely. It's really charming. And I'm a big fan of Sam Logan's style, which is stark black and white. As you can see here, it just feels like it's about someone who's a taxi driver at the start of it and a little psychotic bear. It started off as one-off strips and then it became more of a serial, if you know what I mean. That was a really nice one. I read let me actually make myself bigger. I read the classic Understanding Comics. Have you read this one, Bodie?
I've seen it around. I definitely have flipped through it. I've never owned it, but I've had friends with it that I've had a look through.
I would very much encourage you to take the time to borrow it and read through the entirety of it. I would say that this is one of the best books around, full stop. Like, just one of the best books. It's a comic about comics. So it talks about what are comics. It talks about the gutter and the notion of how time passes within a comic, not just from panel to panel, but within panels, the different relationships that panels have, really deconstructing it to some degree, showing different ways that motion can. And I bookmarked this one more philosophical panel that I just want to show. Scott McCloud says, I believe we all have something to say to the world. I'm a firm believer in the inherent worth of all inner truths. And that's just such a lovely statement. And I think it can be really inspiring. I think that as you go through, it is an enjoyable read. There's, one-page spreads where you're intimidated by, am I going to have to read all of this? And then your eye glances over where Scott McCloud says, read it later, because it's like, this is the one page where there's an awful lot of text and most of the other page, and it's like, this is all of these different things, but most of the pages, this is a typical spread, are going to be about Scott talking to the camera about, this is what comics are, this is why I love comics, this is what comics could be. It's honestly just one of the best books. And if Xates were here, I'm not saying that Xates is here, but if Xates were here, then I would say good morning and lots of love. The other two things I read, I'm talking for quite a bit. Cartoon Coup by my friend Ryan Estrada. And I've got this special illustration at the back where the man has a bike ride and then he gets attacked by some mean ninjas. And special wee illustration that Ryan's first book. Ryan is a person who's had some crazy things happen to them. Like, this is about them actually trying to find a job, and then the person who was meant to give them a job was trying to do a coup to take over the company, and things were getting really shady. And Ryan was like, and then never returned, because it's like, it seemed borderline. And there's points where Ryan's life is indeed and there's also some silly comics in there. And then finally, I also read Newshead by Sam Logan, which is also part of the Sam and Fuzzy online webcomic, but this is a self-contained serial about the lead singer of Newshead. There we go, Sid the sicko, who is a little bit happier and is renowned for having this ultra angry heavy metal music. And then Sids just can't get their mojo back. They are too happy, so they can't play any music. And then it's a complete story, and yeah, it's very different from the first one, but that's probably going to be a book that I keep. I'm a big fan of it. I'm not going to say, oh, rush out and buy it. I don't think it's failed, but no, Moosehead, Sam Logan, check it out online. Sam and Fuzzy. If you've not checked them out online, I would definitely recommend. There's like thousands, so there's a lot to get through, but yeah, check them out. So what have you been up to, Bodie?
A sort of achievement / highlight of my week is that I finally got all my I ran a Kickstarter the end of last year, and I finally sent it off to production, and it's like a paper dolls thing. It's like you build a D&D character using stickers. So
nice.
I've got some here to show. It's like you get a blank background and then you get a bunch of stickers. But these were the test ones, but I finally finished it all off and got that sent off to print, which is like a big deal for me. I'm really happy. That sort of made me feel really good about this week.
Yeah, congratulations. And that sounds really cool. Is that your normal method of getting things realized to kind of make sure that you have enough money for a print run? Is that what you do for most of your books?
I think it's Kickstarters are new to me as of last year, but I think for this sort of thing, yeah, it's nice to sort of make sure there's interest in something before I put a bunch of my own money into it. It's nice to have that avenue of getting a project off the ground. It's really good.
And have there been any games that you've managed to play in the past week?
Not board games, but I've been playing a bit of Phasmophobia with some friends, which is like it's a computer game about investigating a haunted house, and you have to identify the ghost within the house through different means of investigation. There's different electronic readers, and you put down books to hope the ghost writes in it and stuff. And it's a really nice social game. It's pretty scary, but overall for me it's this really fun game I get to play with friends that isn't running around shooting stuff. I like that.
So, I mean, is it that you feel uncomfortable with the going around shooting stuff, or is it just that you want a wee bit of a change?
Yeah, I love games where you run around, shoot stuff. But yeah, it's nice. Especially, it's a bit more of a relaxed. I mean, it can be pretty tense, but there's a point in the game where you're just standing in
with phobia in the title, and I've seen this being played. I think just a couple of minutes on it on stream. It's okay, yeah, it looks like an exploration with occasional jump scares.
It's like a building tenseness, and yeah, sometimes there are jump scares, but I think there's this really nice thing about playing with a friend, and while you're looking for the ghost, you have to find out which room it is in first. You're just wandering around with torches, and we just chat about our day, and it feels really I don't know, it's really nice to just have this relaxed chat with a friend while there's still a thing happening. A bit like how board games, it's you want to meet up with friends and chat, but it's nice having the board game in the middle to kind of just keep things going. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've unfortunately not played, I've not played any board games in the past day, but of course yesterday I had a lovely chat with Kirsten Lunde from New Zealand, and then we played a bit of Words on Stream, which I'm getting a bit addicted to. And, after we finish our conversation, depending on how folk feel, might do 1 or 2 games of that after you head off, and you can stick around or head off for that. It's up to you. Yes, this is Bodie from chat, exactly. And let's talk about a typical day. What's the way that you spend your day? Yeah. So what is a typical day like for you? I know it's probably being a freelancer, things are all over the place, but can you describe a typical day?
I'll wake up just when I feel like it. Like I don't usually get up too early. Maybe around 10-ish, I'll get out of bed, and then I'll get ready, no breakfast. I just go straight. I like get dressed and everything, and then I ride my bike to my studio, which is where I am now. So I'm in Amsterdam, so it's like common to be riding your bike around. And yeah, and then I just set up and I figure out what I'm going to do for the day. Usually I'll have like one main task, especially lately. That's sort of my thing is like, I'm going to definitely get this one thing done today because I just don't work well when I have a big list. And then around 6 or 7, I head home and make dinner or have dinner with my partner, Alina. And then we'll either hang around together, like watch TV or something, but then at about 10 or so, I'll start drawing again. So most of my day is usually drawing stuff, but then at home, I like to just, it's like not as intense a drawing session, but I'll just draw into the late night, maybe around 1 o'clock or something. And I don't know, I work best at night actually. So the fact there's been a curfew is actually a bit, I mean, I'm glad it exists for safety reasons, but it's frustrating not to be able to stay in my studio really late. Like sometimes I like to just work until I'm done quite late. Yeah.
Okay. So in Amsterdam, it's not limits on how many people you can meet or anything like that. It's at, what is it, like 10 o'clock you need to be back home?
So there is a limit in visitors. You can have 1 visitor per day, I think. And then, yeah, there's also a curfew between, you can't be out and around after 9 p.m. Which, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm for it, but also it's frustrating on a personal level that I can't work
I don't
late in my
understand
studio.
the benefits of a curfew, if I'm going to be honest.
I think it's to discourage, because there's a lot of people that still go out and like go to parties, and it's to stop people from, it's
Breaking
to make
the
sure they
rules.
get home quickly, and then if there are people out and about, it's obvious, I think, like, because people have been pretty irresponsible with it all.
I mean, it feels like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just thinking if it were a case of you're allowed to apply for exemption and say, hey, I'm going to my studio and that's work or something, because you're not seeing anyone. So it's not like you would be.
You can do that.
Anything
I'm pretty sure it's more a case of like, I don't know. It's also been good for us to get home. I think me and my girlfriend have sometimes an unhealthy work life. Like, we just want to work all the time. And I think in a way it has been kind of nice that we go home and just hang out together for a while every day.
That's a wee silver lining. That sounds lining. Sorry, what was their name? Ella?
Alina.
Alina, okay. And a quick hello to Nicholas in chat. It's lovely to have you as always. And yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, so it is saying that the curfew is at 7 p.m. and barely gets home from work on time. Wow. So yeah, that does sound quite problematic. But yeah, I guess as long as you're getting home from work, I guess if you were working somewhere else that they had to let you out earlier, then the workplace would have to change what they're doing. But yeah, 7 p.m. Wow, that's kind of crazy to me. I mean, no, sorry, I should say it's kind of extreme to me. And I can call Dana. Okay, thank you, Dana. Yeah, but if anyone in chat has any of their own recent highlights to share, if you've got anything that you would like to mention that you're proud to share, that you've enjoyed, then let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to go into the questionably quick questions. So I'm going to flick through some of Bodie's earliest illustrations from 6-ish years ago.
That's an old one.
And yeah, if you've got any questionably quick questions, anything silly, then feel free to get it into chat right now. And I always start by asking, in as much or as little detail as you're willing to share. You've already told us you're in Amsterdam. You could just tell us about Amsterdam, or you could tell us roughly what part you are in. Are you near to the red light districts? Or are you near some sort of tulip field? I know that those things exist, right? Lots of tulip fields. Although, would they be actually in Amsterdam, or would they be just outside Amsterdam in the kind of countryside? I don't know. I know nothing about Amsterdam, but I am in Glasgow, where it is 10:20. Bodie, your turn.
I am in Amsterdam, and it's 11:20, and I'm trying to think if there's anything especially Dutch that I'm near for you. I'm near an old windmill. It's like
Ooh,
it's a bar now, I think, but that's just and
wow.
it
So,
works.
wait a minute. Because the windmills weren't as efficient as, say, wind turbines, they've converted them into other things.
I guess. I mean, I think they're just not that efficient, these really old ones. Most of them probably don't actually turn. But I swear I saw it turning the other day, and I was amazed that it still operated. It was pretty. I mean, it operated as in it spins. I don't think it's actually functioning or like milling something. But yeah, and I'm next to a canal, which I can't show you because my webcam won't reach. But that's nice. Like my studio window goes out onto water, which is very beautiful.
That does sound lovely. So, yeah, describe the scene for us. You don't need to dox yourself, but yeah, describe the sorts of scenes that you might see from looking out your window. Would you like to swim in that canal? Have you ever swum in the canal?
I mean, not this particular one, but I've swum in one connected to it. It's really nice in the summer. So out my window is there's like a bridge. It's a university that is a little bit revealing, but I don't mind. There's two, so the canal splits off into two, and there's like two bridges going over each, and it's really nice. I have kayaked out here, and I particularly kayaked past my studio just because I thought it was exciting. Like the idea of kayaking in like a very famous big world city is amazing, like through the middle of it, and you're just on a little boat.
I mean, I wouldn't say, Dutch Yoda, that I'm showing off my lack of knowledge as much as I am just admitting my lack of knowledge. And yeah, Xate says, I would love to kayak to work.
Well, that's the thing. I think here you could, like, if you lived near a canal, you could just drag it out and pop in and kayak to your job. Like, it's doable.
And what's your favorite color?
That's tough. I mean, I think brown, like a good brown. I've been using a lot of pink for the last few years, which my girlfriend will take credit for, I think. But I don't know. Yeah, I think brown definitely, just because I think it's really important in my work, and I like the feeling. It's like it does the same thing. Like use it. I use my ink is usually brown, even my pens and stuff. And I think it's nice because it's a bit softer than when you use like a black, which is what most people seem to use. Yeah.
There's definitely something nice about lines that aren't that harsh black, whether it's self-colored, a darker version of it does. Yeah, it makes it a bit more vibrant and alive in a lots of ways.
Wow, I kind of forgot my Instagram goes back this far. So we in Perth in Australia, which is where I lived for the first 30 years of my life. There's this weird thing happened where there was like a roller hockey league popped up out of nowhere, and it became huge, and it became this really big like cultural thing in our city where I think it went from like 4 teams the first season, then the next team there were like 30 teams, and then there were like 2 years later there were like 200 teams or something, which is ridiculous. And it was very casual, like you play on basketball courts, and there's no specific time slots. Like the 2 captains gets matched, and then they have to just figure out when and where they play that week. It's really fun.
So it sounds like a very casual, friendly thing.
Yeah, it was a very like a beer league sort of thing. Oh my god.
And yeah, lots of love to Xate, who's now properly here and played roller hockey for a bunch of years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm scared what you're gonna find on my Instagram this over. I'm sure I look back occasionally.
Is there one of the illustration jobs that you've done that you are proudest of that you can point at, or?
Gosh, I mean, I'm most proud of my own work, like the stuff I make for like my little books and stuff. I mean, this has been such the Goblin Guard was sort of the first proper zine I put together, and I used to do these by hand, and it really took. This is what started me doing this professionally. Like, it took my drawings into sort of the next level of actually like, oh, I can maybe actually do this full time. Like, because I was a graphic designer for a long time, with like working for companies, and I don't know, I was never super passionate about it, but I was always super into my illustration, and I just never saw it as like something that I could actually do professionally until recently.
And congratulations for being able to make that switch. And Xate says, I once checked a £300 Romanian guy named Vlad. I flew backwards 2 meters and broke my wrist and had a concussion. But he
Gosh.
also fell and got scared. And from that day on, if I skated at him, he just gave me the ball. Wow.
Oh, you played with a ball. We played with a puck. It was like this special puck that would slide on concrete. It's interesting. But yeah.
So yeah, lots of hockey inspired. What other sports are you into?
Honestly, I'm not like super sports kind of guy generally, but that really like took off the hockey. And then I started doing every game that we would play, I would draw our like mascot, which was that sort of skull octopus, somehow like interacting with the other team's mascot. But it was some of them were a bit crude. I played indoor soccer for a long time as a very social thing, but now I still have my rollerblades here, but I don't get to use them as much, and I don't get to play hockey, which is it's yeah. I still like rollerblading around it. It's really nice.
Well, apparently, if you're playing in the parking lots, you're better off with a ball.
Yeah,
But a puck needs a proper venue. So Xates was just a bit more makeshifting whatever could be done. I love looking back at these things, and this is the time when you were personally in Tokyo, it looks like.
Yeah, I visited. It was sort of my after getting a job, my first proper job. I saved up for a while and decided I'm going to go on a holiday, and I went to Japan. It was really nice, sort of just to be out by myself for the first time ever, and yeah, I just spent days wandering around Tokyo. Really, yeah, it was a nice time.
Okay.
Oh, that's awful. I feel really bad about sharing. Sorry, no, it's fine.
So let's let's talk about a brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? What's a little thing which is brilliant? Tell us about your thing.
My thing. I have this bone folder.
I have no idea what this is.
So this is I guess it's like, I don't know what category, but it's like it's for folding. So like if you want to score, like it's got the pointy end for you to like score with a ruler, and then you can fold, and then you also, it's got kind of soft edges for sliding along the fold to like really make it a perfect fold. But yeah, it's good. It's a really useful and kind of interesting tool that I don't think everyone sort of knows exists, but it's been really handy. Especially, I mean, I don't put my zines together myself now. I get them printed and produced, but it's seen a lot of use over the years with my work.
And it seems like a very specialist tool. So is it just because you were making your zines that you got this, presumably?
Yeah, it was just I don't know. I was using other things like rulers and stuff, or like my finger. But like if you're doing like 100 zines or something, and you're sitting there like running your finger across it, you can get quite like your finger can start suffering for it. But yeah, it just became a useful. My girlfriend told me she had one and told me, she's like, "Oh, we should use this," and so I did. Yeah, it's really good. And I assume they used to be made of bone, but now this one's like a special rubbery plastic. Yeah, plastic.
Well, so Dana, I hope that you enjoy your new bone folder. And yeah, that is definitely something that I was unfamiliar with. And so, I did want to ask a couple of questionably quick questions. It seems like our audience doesn't have so many, so let me go for the rapid fire things. So firstly, wooden meeples or plastic figurines?
Wooden meeples. I don't know. I love Carcassonne's my favorite board game, so I just can't look past meeples.
Books or podcasts?
Podcasts.
What's one or two of your favorite games?
Like board games? I like Carcassonne is my favorite game. I've been playing Mysterium, which I'm really into. I like that game quite a lot.
Yeah, Mysterium, where it's a cooperative thing. One person's dead and they're playing the part of a ghost. They're trying to get everyone else to guess how exactly they've been murdered. It's quite grisly in some ways, sorts of whodunit, but then you're all psychics, and it's got that Dixit of what does the person mean by this vague picture that they're putting in front of me, because the pictures are how you've got to communicate.
Yeah, it's like
what do you love about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like that. I like Dixit, but I like the way this structures that mechanic a bit more. Yeah, it's like Dixit Cluedo, and I love something I love in games is like when I don't know, just the fun that emerges from trying to imply things with certain cards, and when someone like thinks that you mean something and you definitely didn't mean that, but somehow it still gets you to the right answer. So I like that. Just the fun emerging from that kind of setup is really fun to me. I can't hear you. I don't know if that's me.
What was the last book you read?
I just finished. I mean audiobook, but it was the Bobiverse series.
Bobiverse.
It's this sci-fi.
I'm assuming this is nothing to do with boba, like the bubble tea.
No. It's Bob. It's like Robert Bob Iverse, because it's about this this tech guy that gets like cryogenically frozen when he dies, and then wakes up inside a computer like 100 years into the future, and he's kind of. I don't think this is spoiling it. I think it's in the back of the synopsis, but basically it's about him becoming like a drone in space, and it's really more interesting than that sounds. It was just really good, and because he's a person from like current time, he has all these like relatable like comparisons with the sci-fi universe that he's in. He's like, oh, it's like Star Trek, or like I remember like this. It was really entertaining.
Makes sense. And good morning, Mike de Grief. It is lovely to see you there in chat. And also thanks, Nicholas, for lurking. It's always appreciated. And as we move forward, we are going to just talk a wee bit more about Bodie stuff. And feel free to jump in, ask questions, fun like follow, all that stuff, obviously. Make comments, but I'm not going to necessarily respond to like if you wanted to talk about pigeons and sharks, you had your moment. And unless Bodie brings it up, unless you really want to talk about pigeons and sharks, you know what? Just do all the things. So let's talk about early memories and childhood. How did the story of Bodie begin, as far as you can remember? What's the first memory you're willing to share?
I have very vague memories of my first house that I lived in Perth in Australia. But and then so like my very first memories are like a scattering of my parents building our house that we first lived in, and then we immediately left after it was finished and moved to another state. Um, uh, I can't believe this stuff's on my Instagram. Yeah, my Instagram at one stage was very hockey focused. But yeah, I think that's it. Just building, like being around the house as it was being built. That was my first sort of set of memories.
In this picture, are you the person in the blue shorts?
I don't think I'm even in it. No, I didn't fall over like that. I was very very stable. Oh, this is so violent. I mean, I don't mind a bit of grim stuff in my work still now, but it's interesting to see how much like content on my Instagram even makes me uncomfortable now. These are our jerseys that we had. It was nice. Everyone had their own like special team jerseys, and that was a big part of it. Oh, that's not nice.
I mean, it looks like there's a lot of pride in celebration of the grisly nature of, okay, here's a wee injury after I've body checked someone, or I don't know.
A little bit. I mean, it was all very friendly league, and like whenever there was a problem happened, it was addressed well, and it was quite. It was more of like a jokey, like the any aggression was kind of done ironically a little bit. But yeah. Oh no, I want to skip forward. I don't want my old Instagram anymore.
Okay, I will do that for you. I will skip forwards. I'll go to that view, and so we'll go through that
now
a
the
wee bit
fantasy
faster.
stuff starts.
So, how did he get into hockey? Let's talk about that.
It was a weird thing where I had two friends that just loved ice hockey, like NHL, like watching, and I've never been someone who I can't enjoy watching sports. I don't find it that interesting unless I can interact. But I started to get a little bit into watching hockey with them just because they were getting so hyped up about it. And then we just got some rollerblades and found some sticks and started playing. And then separate to us, this league started and we just started playing there. But yeah, that was a good game. I mean, I really enjoyed the packaging and everything that came with.
Have you always been into drawing? Like, I don't mean literally always. I'm sure there was a time when you were struggling to crawl around, let alone draw. But it's been a big part of your life since you were an infant, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. I think my mum always really encouraged me to draw because she's really good at drawing and she's a really talented like creative person. And I think that was she always really encouraged me to draw and stuff. And ever since I was young, I was always like of our friends, of me and my peers, I was the one who drew stuff, but it never really never focused on a style or anything until maybe like 6 years ago. And I really I was like, I want to do this and figure out a style and like go in a direction. And you can kind of see even within my Instagram where that really starts to shape more obviously.
Yeah, it definitely pushes towards the current style that you've got with the simplicity of line, the flat coloring that you've. I mean, there's definitely an element of whimsy and wonder and, okay, all these magical possibilities within your work. how would you, if you had to describe your style, how would you?
I like using the word whimsy. Someone described my work a bit once as like it's whimsical, but there's like a little bit of sinister in there, and I think that's nice. Like, yeah, whimsical with a bit of sinister is a good one. And I don't think, especially like, I don't think there's always. I really like I think the more work I make, the more I just really like the. Having kind of friendly, nice things in it, but it's still like going into dungeons. So there's going to be the scary stuff a little bit. And I think it's a bit of that is a pushback against what is mainstream in Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPGs, which is a bit more of that like edgy, gritty, like serious stuff. Like I think, and I don't have anything against that, but I feel like there's enough of that and I don't need to go there really.
Sorry, you were about to say.
Oh, this was the first iteration of my Choose Your Own Adventure or my Pick Your Path Adventure zine, which was made up of just a lot of drawings that I kind of made and then pieced them together to make a little story. But yeah.
And for those who are wondering how it compares, here is have you got the picture beside you? I was going to say you can see that it's changed quite a bit there. The illustration that you've wanted to use for the final thing. How did the process come together for this book? And this is one that you've reissued recently, that you've done a reprint of, and clearly there's a lot of pride there. And I'm not going to give any spoilers, but there's, as you say, a level of whimsy. We had a discussion, I think it was about page 20, that I slightly disagreed with the design choice. I felt it was a bit of a tricky one to see. There's a couple of people who also struggle to see it. Honestly, I struggle to see it even when you've told me about it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. That was a new edition that I was... Yeah, I definitely would have tested it if it was a time when I could really like get it out to more people early, but yeah. I liked trying to find different mechanical ways to, like, I wanted to hide paths in a Pick Your Path adventure, and I think that's quite difficult because at the end of the day, you need to tell someone to go to a different page, and yeah, the best I could think was to actually hide the text within the drawing, which there's a very fine line between it being really too obvious and too hidden.
I mean, yeah, so you've kind of already given the secrets away. There's something hidden in the drawing, and I think if someone, for me, if there had already been some pictures in the drawing, if you know what I mean, if we were already expecting that or looking for that, it could have been maybe a little bit harder to find. But I don't know. How do you feel about it now? Do you feel like if there's a third printing, would you make any changes? Would you do a completely different Choose Your Own Adventure or Pick Your Path book, I should say?
Yeah, I'll definitely... I mean, I've got... I even have it on the floor here. I'm doing a much bigger one, which is like this is how the plan looks of like the progression through the story.
So how many sections is this going to be?
I think it's around 70 pages. And because it's like, if you look at a classic Choose Your Own Adventure like this one, it shows the map of the thing, and I never liked where like I didn't want to progress like 10 pages before you get a choice. So that's what this is indicating, the amount of different pages you get, and then there's a choice, and then there's like 3 pages in a tweet. I like to have a choice on every page, and that makes it a lot more painful to make as the creator, because then I have to draw something for every page. But it's, I don't know, I like that. I think that's what I want, and there to be lots of secrets in there and like hidden bits, and I don't know. I think it's a game design, especially video game design issue that I think pops up a bit more recently, where a lot of games really don't let anyone miss out on anything. Like, but I don't know. I think maybe it's a bit mean, but I kind of like the idea that some things are really difficult to find, and maybe everyone won't find them. But I think what you highlighted to me is that you knew there was stuff you were missing out on, and that sucks. So I don't mind if someone doesn't find it and doesn't know they're missing out, but I don't know how to deal with that.
I guess that's the thing, like, especially with such a short book, you are, okay, I went through again, and then at the end where it says, oh, can you find all these things? And it's almost, it's asking you to look carefully at the pages, and that makes sense. And to me, that felt like that should have been the thing that's, okay, I really need to study that. This almost Where's Wally type thing seems like a really interesting design choice, especially if you say, okay, can you do it so you can find all of these things on one playthrough? Because a little bit of feedback, it wasn't clear whether this had to be done on just one playthrough, or if that could be done just going through multiple times, if you know what I mean.
Okay, that is fair.
Beetles is that I need to work out, okay, what's the best path to find the maximum number of beetles? Maybe there's 9 beetles in the book, but the maximum number of beetles that you can find in one run through is 6. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it would be, but yeah, I think with a 400 section, once you're into the 400 sections, I'm not going to get to the end and then look at literally every choice. Whereas this kind of reminds me of, To Be or Not to Be, that is the adventure.
I don't know.
By Ryan North, I believe.
Okay.
But that is a choose your own, it's a game book version of Romeo and Juliet, I want to say. And you get to be one of the people, and you get to maybe be the ghosts of the dead. Am I thinking of the right book? Is it Romeo and Juliet? Where there's a dead dad and there's 2 people. Yeah, anyway. But it shows how, but don't take with the Kickstarter, they had a little mini book along with that as a freebie to say, hey, this is just a wee quest. This will take you maybe half an hour to read the entirety of, maybe 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, I'd finished my first playthrough, and then I finished another playthrough, and then, okay, now what do? I don't want to keep reading. I'm not going to read every single word in the first section. I'm not going to actually read it when I know what it says. I'm going to, go back and forth and just explore every possibility, because it was just a short, maybe 16-page thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like, I don't know what the cutoff line is, but it feels like there's definitely a point where, as a player, I am very much tempted to just go through literally everything once I've already played through it once or twice.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I get that. I think that's good feedback. It's interesting.
Got a wee reminder to stretch and jiggle, but let's go back and talk about early adulthood and jobs and relocating. So what was the first job that you had? How was your school? Did you enjoy school? Did you enjoy university? What was your...
I didn't enjoy school. I was never good at school. It just wasn't. Yeah, I felt like I never found my crowd at school. Like it was. I don't. I'm not really friends with. I'm not enemies of them, but I never really kept in touch with school people. I went to what in Australia we call TAFE, which is like college, technical college.
Hmm.
And I studied a lot of things. I was very fortunate to have really supportive parents that just wanted me to like figure out what I wanted to do. And I did animation. No, I did programming for 6 months and then switched within the same school to animation. I really enjoyed animation, but there was not really any work surrounding purely animation in my city. And so then after that, I went for a few jobs, but it was just there were like a few jobs and that was it. I moved into I studied film and then graphic design finally. And then finally, like graphic design felt like this good balance of creativity, but actually there's jobs that I could get in my city. And then after study, I got a job at the like local version of Netflix. It was like
Oh, wow.
it wasn't like Australian Netflix. It was just called something else. It was just that kind of service. Before that, there were lots of them, which was really fun for a while. Like getting to work with like movie posters and stuff, and like really like use these fun graphics and make advertising stuff with them. Yeah, that was good. It was, and then my next job was at like a student help organization. It was like a student resources sort of thing where they provided services that help students and discounts and things like that. It was a very like really super nice company. It was really good. But I was always doing like a lot of emails, like marketing and stuff. So I worked on the marketing team as the graphic designer and like email handler, which ended up being super helpful for when I split off to do freelance stuff, like knowing how to use MailChimp and like newsletters and knowing all that, just how basic marketing works is really nice. It's really like, I'm really happy that I had that like 6 years I worked as a graphic designer, and it's such a help now as an illustrator. I have all these like, I don't know, like satellite skills that really like help me do that thing that you have to do as a freelancer, which is do a lot of the roles.
And I guess, did you learn also wee bits about how to communicate with people?
I guess, I don't know. I would never say I'm super good at communicating through marketing, maybe. Yeah, like that kind of communication, like doing posts and like captioning them and emailing out and stuff like that. I think I'm okay at that. I think and that's really just such a huge part of having any success in this sort of field, I think, is getting yourself out there. Because you can be as good a drawer or you can be amazing at what you do, but if you're not actually getting it in front of people, it's really hard to have any success.
So this Australian Netflix, what was it actually called?
It was called Quick Flicks.
Quick Flicks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if they exist anymore. I kind of got out as they were falling down.
Yeah, they just couldn't survive without you. And Mike de Grief says that looking at the beautiful drawings, Mike wants to start drawing again too. What, like, how? I want to go back to that. So that job, was that the last job you had in Australia?
The one at the student organization was basic. I left that and went full time with illustration.
Congratulations. And how did that feel? How were you able to fund yourself leaving Quick Flicks? What was the source of income, if you don't mind me asking?
I've never been very good with money generally. Like I'm not good at saving. I'm not good at that. So, but I managed to save a little bit as we left. It was kind of like moving to Europe was like a nice place to jump off and like leap into it and try, like, you know, a big change of location. Like I'm leaving a job. This is the time to give it a go. But I mean, the downside of that was moving to one of the most expensive cities. Like it's really like rent here is ridiculous, and having to go from like a relatively cheap city to an expensive one and doing it with a freelance like income has been hard. but it was just a bit of savings and like living really like light as far as spending goes, and having a partner who's also doing it. Like my girlfriend Lena is also an artist, and I think that's been really helpful because we've been really like motivating each other a lot, because we have to like make this work, and I don't know, I think it's nice having someone else in the same position as you to kind of understand what's happening.
And firstly, what year was this that you came to Amsterdam?
I'm trying to think. I think it's like 2.5 years ago. Like,
okay,
it was like,
so we are seeing the stuff from when you were still in Australia.
Oh yeah,
but, yeah, just a quick proper shout out to Matthew Dunstan and Alex in chat. Thank you for joining, as always. It's lovely to see you. And Mike makes a good point. Why did you choose to move to Netherlands? It looks like you're quite happy here and able to make stuff, and you're roller skating away. Is this you dressed up as a wizard?
Yeah, that's me. It's you can't see it in that, but the clothes only go to my knee, and it was really like, it was a weirdly like, it just looked very funny. It was like a slightly sexy wizard outfit because of that. But that was my birthday before we left Australia, and I decided we're going to do a wizard birthday, and all my friends came dressed as wizards, and we like had the quest was all like my favorite places within the city, and we wandered around. It was really fun.
Well, that was September 2016. So if that was just before you moved, that suggests you moved a wee bit longer than you are remembering.
Or maybe it was a few before. I don't know. It was not that long. I don't. Yeah, it was while we were still in Perth, at least. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, but you definitely moved within the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And so yeah, sorry. Back to why you moved.
Well, I think I'm a bit of a like comfort person, where I'm just like happy staying here. Like, I lived at home with my parents for a long time, and I was like, it's fine here. I don't need to go anywhere, which is true. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But Lena was very up for like adventuring, and like, it's like, like Perth, Australia is nice. It's like a good quality of life, but I want to get out there and like see the world, kind of thing. And so it was definitely driven by Lena. But like, and as much as like I wouldn't have made that choice on my own, I'm so happy we did. Like, and it's been such a good thing. I've seen so many different places and people. But the reason for it was, so Lena has family in the Netherlands. And so she was able to come and live here pretty easily. And I was able to, at the time, I have a British passport through my dad. So I was born in Australia, but I was very lucky that I was able to get that British passport. And then also very lucky that we got here before, like, there was this cutoff where, because of Brexit, you couldn't stay if you weren't here already at a particular time. So that was really nice that I got in before then. And we're so lucky to be able to move like that. There's so many people we know, even coming from Australia, that have had to like hire lawyers and go through so many hoops trying to move country like that. Yeah, very, very lucky. But yeah, just because it's a cool place. I don't know, it's a really nice, beautiful city. Like, as soon as we got here, I kind of knew that it was a place I could live. It's a really lovely city.
So can we talk about Alina for maybe 2 minutes? And basically, how did you meet? Because clearly this Alina seems to be a really big force in your life. You've been together for I don't know how long. But if someone's persuading you to move and you're making that sort of decision together, it feels like, yeah, how did you meet?
So I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but there's like a podcast called The Moth, and it's like live storytelling. And so it's like these events in mostly America, I think, where people get up on stage and tell true life stories. And anyway, I was really into this, and so I found out that there was a similar event in Perth in our city, and I went along alone just because I didn't really know anyone that would want to go with me. And then we ended up just sitting next to each other on like one of the benches at this event while the like people are telling stories. And then during one of the breaks, she just said hi, and we started talking a bit. And then we ended up connecting via Facebook, and yeah, that it sort of just went from there. It was like a nice just happening that we have no crossover. So this is Lena has a shop here in Amsterdam called Pansy, and she makes most of this stuff herself, and she's got a very funny sense of humor and amazing sense of style.
Yeah, that's a beautiful shop front.
We swap the shapes in the window every now and then to be different. At the moment, they're big flowers. But yeah, we've been together for, I think, almost 5 years now. It's been a while. And originally she was planning on moving to Paris because the place that she worked in Perth was kind of a business that was going to relocate, and she was going to go without me. Like we kind of talked, and she's like, no, this is going to be my thing. I'm going to go with my friend and we're going to do it. And then I don't know, between then and when it changed to Amsterdam, she asked if I would come with her. So I think our relationship grew even stronger between those periods. And yeah, it's been really good.
And I assume that, yeah, you've never looked back. You are really happy with the move. What's been the best parts of moving to Amsterdam, would you say?
I think, I don't know, it's such a hub for me, like, because Perth is known as like the loneliest city, I've heard. And it's like, I think it's further from any other city than any other city is or something. Like it's so far away, and Australia itself is far away from a lot of, like, it's not as like central. I mean, it depends where, but that's been a big thing, is coming to Amsterdam, where it's like everything's so close. You can get to like different countries easily. Like it's, I mean, not right now, but that's been a big thing for me. For someone who hasn't really traveled much, as soon as we moved here, I ended up being to more countries in the first 6 months than I had ever been in my life. Like, yeah.
Oh. To be fair, Australia's a big place. I can understand, with a big island like that, you not wanting to head over to that many other places. And hello, Bones John. It's lovely to see you in the chat, and I was glad to see you got your parcel. I saw that this morning. I didn't have time to agree. Matthew definitely agrees with the feeling of being an Australian coming to Europe and finally getting to visit other countries easily. Yeah, we're a tiny place. I mean, it's like all these districts, essentially.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's just, yeah, it's not even just the time. Like, the time sitting on a plane is huge coming to Europe from Australia, or going most places from Australia. But the money, like, it just costs a lot. You can't just like, oh, and then here I can like pay like 15 euros to take a bus to Paris. Like, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean, it is slightly to do with being an island as well. I mean, UK, don't get me wrong, it's easier to get to Ireland or to get to France than it would be to get to Japan or New Zealand from Australia. Which are those your closest countries?
Yeah. Like, I think a lot of people in Perth would go to, like, I feel like the biggest holiday destination from Perth is Bali, which that's sort of the main one. Or there's or Singapore is quite easy to get to. That's sort of like the easy spot to get over to. But yeah.
I'd like to chat about, let me change the banner. And I just love what you've done here. I love choose your own adventure books, you know, that feeling of ownership. Let's talk a wee bit about Goblin Guard, sorry. That's been something that we've seen on your Instagram. And yeah, let's talk a wee bit about this choice by committee story that you're doing on that you did do in November 2016 on your thing. I did a wee bit of. Was this basically just an excuse to draw a lot and have people invested in what you're drawing?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, it's like what I said about Mysterium, like you kind of putting something out there and people kind of creating from it. Like I like that. Like, I mean, it's why I love D&D too. Like you present something and then people kind of direct it or decide where it goes. And being able to draw that as well, I think is really exciting. But it's a lot of work too, and it's quite energy like and time consuming.
Yeah, I did a weird thing where I was drawing 24-page comics. They weren't the most lovely things, but this would have been about 2015, 16. And for a bit, I was, trying to get people to vote on it, but that was like a full thing. And then it felt like maybe I was biting off a bit more than I could chew for those, because those were all trying to be 24-page. And even if you do 24 panels, like each page just win one big illustration, which I normally wouldn't, it's a lot to do. But there's just like a joy in what's going on, like a whimsy of, okay, this is creating. What attracts you to illustration?
I guess it's just that, you know, being able to visualize anything you can imagine, I think. And there's a point where like I felt like I got good enough at drawing that I could visualize anything that I wanted. Like it wasn't like a frustrating, I mean, obviously in my like limited style, I'm not saying I'm amazing or anything, but like I feel really unrestrained by that. I don't know. I like just being able to make these visual things. I'm not good at analyzing it too much, but yeah.
No, that's totally fair. And so you came to Amsterdam, you were trying to set up this new career as a freelance illustrator. And what were some of the jobs that you managed to get?
So it was a goal of mine to at least like mostly be doing my own things. So I don't really, my style is very specific, and I feel like it doesn't always translate into doing other people's stuff all the time, because it's very much my own look. But I'm still always open to doing other like commission work. So other than my own stuff, like I started a Patreon and started making more products and books. I've done some video game work. I've done a little bit of board game work, but not a lot. I worked on a game that came out last year called Roki, which is interestingly enough, it's a point and click adventure, which is sort of my favorite childhood sort of genre of game to play, like Monkey Island and King's Quest. So it was really nice getting to work on something like that. And I did all like the menu items and anything where the game itself was 3D, but then the menu stuff, and the main character had like a journal, and she would write and draw what the places that she would see into her book, and I got to do all that drawing, and that was so fun to take part in. But other than that, it's like small commission work and no giant projects. I think Roki was probably the biggest sort of project other than my own that I've been a part of.
That is pretty awesome. I've not heard of Roki, I must admit. Would you be able to tell us a wee bit more about it and what the job entailed? And Yeah, Bones John's giving you lots of compliments.
Thanks.
These illustrations are so good. Your drawings pop up with so much character, and Bones is now following on Instagram.
Well, thank you. So the game was made by these. I think it was headed by these two guys. The company's called Polygon Treehouse, and it's like it's an adventure game. It's very like sweet and like fairy tale-esque. It's based on Swedish folk tales, I believe. And you're playing as this character whose brother's been lost, and you're sort of searching. You fall into this like magical land, or sort of it's like an adjacent land to the real world, kind of. But it just has such good atmosphere. It was such a cool thing to be a part of. Like it's one thing to get to be a part of a game, but then if you actually like really love it as well, it's even better. And I don't know, it was just nice. I think it was a really good matching. Like they gave me all these briefs of items, like it was like hundreds of different items to draw. So like as the character would pick an item up and it would go into the inventory, I would draw that version of it. And it just flowed really easily. It was I would feel really lucky, you know, like because not everyone, I don't know if anyone's ever done commission work and stuff. Sometimes you get a client who you just don't mesh well with, or like you don't have that same visual language, and the briefs can sometimes not be enough to get the drawings to where you want straight away. But this just went really well, and it was really, really easy job, and such a nice thing to be a part of. But yeah, I recommend it. It's on Switch, it's on Steam. It's called Roki, and then the O has like the 2 dots, I think.
ROKI.
Yeah. It's a really sweet game. It's like a really nice thing to relax to.
I'll have to look into it, maybe get it up on the screen if you fancy a wee bit. So that was one of your earliest big jobs, and it at the moment is it a lot of is the bulk of your work via selling your own objects that you've created?
Yeah.
Prints or...
Yeah, it's a mix of, I have my Patreon, which is sort of like monthly TTRPG content. It leans towards D&D, but I think I really try and keep it light so it can kind of just be generally applicable. And then also selling stuff on various like virtual tabletops like Roll20 and stuff. Like they have a marketplace, and putting stuff up on that. Like dungeon maps and content. Like I put up like packs of items and stuff like these. And then I try and make everything physical as well, because there's not, I love it. I love making like, I just love making tactile things. I think it's really nice. And
I know that when I reached out to me, you were very disinclined to let me see something that you'd made on PDF, and you said something like, that's just not the way that I want this to be experienced. Why is that important to you?
I think especially with the Pick Your Path adventure, there's a thing about like going through the pages, and I think if you could just sit with your mouse and scroll through, it just wouldn't feel the same. And I think it's also a bit of maybe a lack of confidence in the product. Like even the fact I make them teeny tiny, I think that's part of it. Is like, I don't know, I think I imagined it being experienced like as a physical product, and I just felt a bit like a PDF wouldn't feel as good, and then you wouldn't think it was as good, and I'd feel bad or something. Like, yeah.
It feels... Yeah, I can totally relate to a lack of confidence about things. Yeah, I don't know to say about that, but the physicality of a thing is very important, says Idle Michael. Hello, Idle Michael, by the way. And yeah, I can. It is definitely, as a person who makes board games, that I would prefer people to, not just play an LDEC game on with me digitally. I would like to think that if they enjoy it, to get to deck, but it's a difficult one, because at what point do you say, okay, I am going to digitally reproduce it just to increase the accessibility?
Yeah, that's true.
Now,
But
sorry, you were about to say.
no, I just think like, because a big thing for me is like even just like the paper, like these cards I print on really like nice, slightly textured paper. Like that's like, if you print this on just plain white, like regular paper, it just doesn't work. And I feel like that's, to me, the texture of the paper is almost as much of this product as the drawing. And if you don't have that, I mean, you can do that. And I do try and do that with my stuff that I do distribute digitally, like my D&D adventures. I will often add texture and stuff and try and bring that, the things that I like about the physical nature of these products, into the digital as best as I can. But yeah, I love the packaging. I love that side of it, the packaging and the creation. I think that's really, I enjoy that a lot.
There's definitely something different about in the same way that having leftovers from a restaurant. If I know in some places they just don't let you do it, and I had an American friend who said they were somewhere in Italy, and he said, "Oh, could I not finished it? Could I take it home?" And he said, "Oh no, you're not allowed to do that. It won't be as good." And the person was like, "Well, I'm going to, in my mind, know that it's not going to be as good the next day. It's not like I'll be eating it the next day and thinking, oh, this wasn't so good as I remember. Clearly, the restaurant's not that good. I'm going to never visit that restaurant again."
That's a nice thing to think about. Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't seen these ones before. These are really ridiculous. Wow.
That was a friend and I put on an event in Perth called the World's Tiniest Zine Fair. I think there might be more pictures somewhere on my thing, maybe not. And basically it was, we got people to send in zines that were like teeny tiny. And then we had, instead of people standing at tables, I made these like miniature tables, and with all the little mini zines on it, and you could just walk around. It was very weird, but funny.
Wait, so all the miniature tables were on like one normal size table?
Yeah, I'll find. I think I have a thing somewhere.
That is, wow, that sounds ridiculous. I love it. Let's talk about fantasy also a wee bit, about how you started to get into fantasy and RPGs, because was Dungeons and Dragons your first one?
It was my first RPG, yeah, or my first like tabletop RPG. It was the kind of thing that I didn't get into until like I was about 24 or something.
Wow, that is amazing.
It was a fun one. So yeah, I always wanted to play D&D, but I never understood what it was. And it was a time before, like, I mean, it's not even that long ago, but it's a time before there were like real play shows on YouTube or podcasts like Critical Role and stuff. So like I kind of knew what it was, but I didn't really understand it. Like I made characters for D&D when I was younger without ever really understanding what it was for, other than that it seemed really cool and open and creative. And then I finally managed to get into a game, because it was also before it was that super popular again. Like I mean, even now you can struggle to get into a game, but there's a lot more going on. But yeah, I got into it and just immediately fell in love with D&D and just the creativity of it. And there's no particular attachment to D&D other than that's the most popular one, so it's sort of the easiest to find people in. That's sort of the reason I go with D&D generally.
Yeah, it's kind of, if someone's like, oh, shall we play fantasy RPG, they're more likely to say, hey, do you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, especially if they're coming from outside of the scene, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and I have a lot of trouble reading, like sitting down and reading books and like ingesting rules and stuff. So not having to learn new rules and stuff all the time, like just trusting that, like, I know these rules, you probably know these rules, we can figure it out. That's why D&D. And I genuinely think 5th edition is a really nice balance of like number crunching and like role playing. I think they've lent a bit heavier on role playing this time around, which is nice.
This almost looks like you've got a kind of platformer in your mind or something while you were making it.
Yeah, that was part of a big poster, which I was doing. Oh, it's nice it lines up at the moment, but yeah. I like that, like lots of detail and like little hidden things that you might find later kind of look.
Well, yeah, that is actually really nice. Wow. And you've made it very squared off. I mean, it fits the Instagram format very well in that there's a specific scene in each square, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that was very intentional.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think there's one at the top where there's not much in it, but that was about all. Yeah.
There on the top right. No, that's a really nice spread. And so was that produced as a big wall scroll?
That was for a reso print. So when Lena and I moved to Europe, we decided we were going to kind of move around a bit, and Lena applied for a bunch of artist residencies. So which is like when an art organization will have like a place for an artist to stay for a while, and sometimes there'll be like projects that you're meant to do, or you propose a project to do while you're there. And she got one at a print studio in Amsterdam, and they I could come along. I wasn't really taking part in the same way she was. I was more there as her partner, but they had a risograph machine, which is this really beautiful method of printing, beautiful bright colors. And so I designed that poster to be riso printed. And that was sort of one of my little projects.
So with a risograph, you can get a lot more colors going on than traditional CMYK.
So yeah, instead of doing CMYK, which can, I mean, it's usually fine, but it can kind of muddy the colors sometimes. Risograph is like pure color, so it works like a screen print. In that you're doing, and there's this like leaning towards really fluorescent bright colors with risograph. I'm just thinking if I have any to show any riso stuff. I have this poster which I didn't make. This is a risograph poster, but as you can see, like the red is beautiful. It's just really like solid colors.
And that's a red that unless you were using a Pantone, you might not be able to get in traditional printing.
I guess, yeah. I think you'd struggle to get something so intense. Like, I mean, maybe it doesn't show on the camera quite as well, but it's very much like really like bold colors you get. And it's really fun method to kind of, it's one of those things where you have like restrictions which kind of make it more fun. Like it gives you ideas like where you're inputting the colors in like percentages of like, so 100% red is this, 50% red is this, and then what if I do 50% red and 20% green? How do they mesh over each other? And it's really like, some people do amazing stuff with recently, like really impressive.
It's really fascinating, and I don't know if you like with the pink and the black that can't actually like the pink on the pink pigments that I've never actually seen it, so you can't see what it looks like because the screen can't actually show that level of pinkness, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, like the blackest black, which one of my friends, actually it was Chris, who bought this blackest black paint and painted something all in the blackest black, and it's just crazy how you can barely see shadows on it because it's already absorbing so much light.
Yeah.
And yeah, the way that you can see colors on a stained glass thing that you just could never see on any other medium. Is that, do you always keep in mind the final way that your things are going to be produced? Or, yeah, do you always keep that in mind?
I think so. I think I usually picture a final product at the end, like, but lately I've been trying to become more like, I'm trying to make things that I can put digitally as well. Like, so I want to make like a D&D adventure, which I can put on my Patreon digitally. And that's like a nice format to use, but then without too much reworking is already a print product. Like it's printable as well. Like it's, and I really love that like problem solving design side of things. Like I think that's really, really satisfying to me to like come up with a way to like lay out an InDesign document that then I can save and then open up in my other template, which automatically pulls in this InDesign document and like resizes everything for print. Like it's so, I love doing that. It's great.
Sorry, I'm just giggling at this ring, which is a bit masochistic.
Yeah,
maybe. Let's talk about getting into board games and getting into RPGs. What were the first board games that you played?
I distinctly remember someone showing me Settlers of Catan. I feel like in Europe, more families would have games like that weren't just like Monopoly. Like in Australia, all I had was Scrabble and Monopoly. I feel like it's a common story, but like for a long, long time. And then in my sort of mid-20s, I just went to like a friend hangout, and someone was like, "Oh, let's play Settlers of Catan." I was like, "I don't know what that is." And I was like, "Oh, board games can be really cool. Like they can be really creative and interesting." Like, and then after that, it began that like friend group thing of like every time we would come to hang out, someone would have like a new game, and we really like went through a lot of games in a short period of time after that.
I mean, what sorts of games are we talking? Like
everything, all sorts of terrible games too, and like I'm trying to think of what I was the only one in our friend group to get super into Carcassonne. Like I love Carcassonne, and me and my mum played a lot of Carcassonne together, and like we would go to this board game cafe that was open for a while in Perth, and just to go to the Carcassonne days to play together and with other people, and I made some really good friends that way. What other games? Like is Formula D the car racing game, the board game?
yeah.
I
Where
love
there's
that.
different dice for the different speeds.
Yeah, the gears, like, and just seeing creative mechanics like that. I've never seen anything like that. That was really exciting. I mean, of course, like Dixit, Power Grid, just nothing super strange, I don't think. For a long time, I really wanted to play Agricola, and no one would play with me. And then I played at the board game cafe, and then no one wanted to play again afterwards. It was just too much getting into it. I don't think I love the really heavy ones. Like, they can be good, but I think for my general taste is something a bit lighter. I really I like Talisman, even though I know it's can be pretty boring, I think, but there's something about it that I really like the fact that it feels like this really old. I mean, it is a really old game, and it's that sitting around with friends, knowing it's going to be a long time, and just enjoying company and getting through this game that's essentially, do I want to go left or right every turn? I enjoy that.
I mean, I I'm glad that you were able to find joy in Talisman. I personally, it wasn't something that I was personally the biggest fan of. I found it a bit too long, but I can definitely see how it. When you played it, were you ever bothered about actually finishing the game, if you know what I mean? Because I know some people explained to me that actually for us, we didn't need to finish the game. We would just play a few hours, and if someone wins, then great, they've won the game. But if after so many hours no one's won, we just pack it away, and that's okay.
I think I would be a little bit frustrated if we didn't finish, but I think I would never start a game if I didn't know we had enough like open-ended time to finish it. You know, I wouldn't get out Talisman thinking, oh, we have 2 hours, quick, let's rush through it. But yeah. And then another kind of game that I've more leaned towards lately was the first iteration that I played of, the first sort of type of game was Battlestar Galactica, which took me a long time to really, I mean, I like the show, but I'm like, you know, it's, if you follow the rule of video games, movie video games are never good. It's like the idea that there can be this real gem of a game under this Battlestar Galactica skin really like surprised me. That was such a good game, like these like hidden roles, and like how much of that game is just social interaction. Like it's just like accusing each other of being Cylons and stuff is so fun. And like even to the point like, yeah, it would carry over for days of us like joking about it. I don't know, that's lovely. And like then following from that, you get stuff like Saboteur. I can't even think of other ones, but I've definitely played more. But I love that. I love
Resistance.
hidden. Yeah.
Cool.
And I've never played Werewolf, but I mean that's a kind of hidden role game. But I think Battlestar Galactica did it really well in that it was like there was a board game going on plus this other mechanic sort of in there as well. Like you could just lose the board game without the Cylons doing anything. But yeah.
That's really cool. And of course, you've done a wee bit of streaming and a wee bit of podcasting yourself. Was that why did you start streaming?
I think it was a bit of a focus thing. Like I think when I'm streaming, it's like there's people there watching usually, and so it's like I have to keep working. Like it's like they're here to watch me draw, so I'm going to keep drawing, and I can't like. And I usually stream for at least a few hours, so it's sort of a way to really like. And also, it's nice to just have people to chat to while you draw. And then the podcast was just I don't know. I've always liked the idea of having a podcast. I think a lot of people share that sort of feeling, but I really decided to keep it as like this is a fun thing. And it's an excuse to just chat to people. I think it's one thing to just message someone you think you admire on Instagram or something and have a little chat, but it's nice having the context of like, it's like this, like, or a podcast to ask them questions, like more in-depth questions, and just sit down and have a good chat. You can do it. You could just message someone, hey, let's have an in-depth chat. But I think having that, the containment of like a podcast or something makes it more doable.
Yeah, and it's a weird one because I don't know, as a freelancer, because you have to promote yourself, is there the temptation to feel like, okay, even if there's not that many people watching this thing, okay, let's say there's only going to be 10 people that watch it ever, but it might not even come to anything, but you feel like, okay, you've at least reached someone and it kind of has some work value. Do you know? I mean,
Yeah.
do you ever feel like that?
I think there was a period where I tried to like stream like a thing, like I'm going to stream and maybe this will promote me, but I don't know, I never saw a lot of success like in that sense. So I had to early on, I kind of really started viewing it more as this has to be of some value other than promotion for me, like not because it's not helpful, like it can I've definitely had like people that have popped into my stream that now I still see pop up in the comments and stuff of Instagram, and I've been friends with, or they're on Discord. But I think, I don't know, for me not to be disappointed, I have to just view it as like, this is just a focus tool for me, or this is just a way to be social. Yeah.
And lots of love to Bones John. I hope that you have a nice nap or whatever it is you're up to, and I'm glad you've enjoyed the interview so far. And now I kind of get that. I'm feeling like also for the guest, it's not just you, the host. But as a guest, if I'd asked you, hey, Bodie, do you want to chat and just hang out for a bit? I mean, the fact that even though there might not be that many people watching right now, it feels like it kind of legitimizes it. So I wouldn't have had a 2-hour conversation with Martin Wallace probably, or I wouldn't be having these discussions with Matthew or yourself if it wasn't for the fact that it's kind of public. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, no, I do totally. Yeah.
And maybe you get the same when it's both in your podcast, because that's where you have guests, but as you said, your streaming is I've done a couple of streams where I paint, and I do find that I'm less productive than if I were to focus on painting and just be listening to podcasts.
Sure.
But at the same time, at least I'm doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It means that at least I'm painting that day, and I got to do some stuff that, let's be honest, I might not have done. For yourself, it feels like you've got so much discipline in getting to your studio and doing a wee bits of drawing later at night that, yeah, for sure you've got to bring in this output to, I guess, keep your Instagram going, to keep it populated so that you can show a new thing. Is it like every day not every day, but like it's pretty regular that you post new things?
I aim for every day, but I also try not to be hard on myself if I can't make that. But that's the goal. But yeah, I'm not. I can draw forever. Like I can just sit down and draw unendingly, but I do struggle with really finishing off projects. Like that's sort of where I need the focus. And when you're your own boss and there's no one to sort of be accountable to, it's sometimes really, I do have to really put a lot of energy into finishing projects and getting it done, which I'm getting better. I feel like I'm definitely getting better at over the years, but it's been quite an effort. Like running a Kickstarter, like getting it all ready and then launching it, and then once it's done, actually getting the product produced. Like I've definitely been a bit slower than I would have liked on both my Kickstarters, but I mean, I get it done. It gets there. But yeah.
Well, what else were we going to talk about? Other than the method of drawing, which I guess is pencil, ink on paper, scanned in, colored digitally, sometimes watercolor?
It used to be. I do all digital now. So I have, since we moved to Europe, I've been using an iPad Pro to draw, and recently I got a Huion like tablet attached to my computer. I do ink and watercolor still, and it was a big thing for me when I switched to full digital that I really wanted to retain the same. Like, I think it's quite difficult to even tell. I hope it's difficult to tell where that change happened in my Instagram storyline, because I used to work with ink and sketch, like basically what you said, and I'd color on Photoshop. But yeah, I just love the speed that digital gives me, like the versatility, and
Not
I
to
do a lot of
mention
laying out.
undo.
Yeah, and undo. It's very handy. But it makes a different kind of drawing too. Like now when I do some like watercolor and ink pieces, and there's something to be said about those like accidents that you end up working around, and it informs the drawing in a really different way. Like you end up with these kind of weird lumpy walls or something, and that's got its own charm, which I really like.
Now I can dig it. It's definitely working digitally. It feels like it allows you to do more exactly what was in your head, but sometimes you can just feel like you're falling down a rabbit hole. You need to do this over and over and over until it's exactly the way that you want it.
Yeah, for
How
sure.
do you avoid that?
I mean, I think there's a bit of a lumpiness that I try and build into my style. Like the way I do lines, it's like I don't use guides and stuff. So I do a lot of maps, like dungeon maps and stuff for D&D, but I don't think I rarely use guides and rulers, because if I do, you can see it. Even though my lines are straight, there's sort of a lumpiness to it, and I like that organicness in my style. I think I want to try and keep that. But yeah, I think it's hard, but just trying to build that lumpiness into the style, I guess, and not really trying not to overdo it and redo the lines too many times, being comfortable with it.
Yeah, maybe even restricting the number of times that you undo something in a given picture, saying, okay, I'm not going to undo more than 3 times in this wee picture that I draw, because I
It would
don't
be
know,
an
kind
interesting
of
Photoshop plugin.
something which brings you back to the joy of a one-line drawing on traditional media, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to just draw this person, try to draw this face, and once I've started, that's it. I've got to keep going, and then you end up doing something in 1 minute which has more life and more beauty in it than something that you might have spent an hour on sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
That feels like a nice place to start winding up. Is there anything else that you would like to chat about? If there's any tips that you would like to give anyone who's thinking of doing some illustration, you've clearly got to in marketing themselves. Any tips in streaming or creative endeavors or anything of that sort?
I mean, I guess only to start early, and like I was able to hop off my job into doing this because I had been doing it for years before in my spare time. Like there's start putting your work out there, and like being comfortable showing it to people, I think is really important.
Yeah, and if you are already at a later age and you've, oh dear, I can't start early, I guess the next step would be to start today. Start
Yeah.
as soon as you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything that you would like to say about the Instagram, about marketing yourself, or things in general, or?
I don't know. I think trying to think of what some good tips. Start a newsletter. That's good. It's nice having something that's not centralized around a platform that might disappear. Like it's all good having an Instagram following or a Twitter following, but having a mailing list is really handy because you control it. Like you have that list and you can take it wherever you go. That's been really helpful for getting news out there and products and stuff. It's been really nice.
Thank you for being such a lovely guest. It's been a really nice chat and a really lovely way to start the morning.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Going to try and recap what we've talked about. We talked about myself, who had read a whole bunch of comics, and Scott McCloud also talks about the relatability of iconized characters, if you know what I mean, which does make me think of how this little goblin, by virtue of having less detail in it, it makes it sort of, you can relate. And whereas with the trees, for example, I'm going to show this, I'm covering the text, but like if you look at, it's the background isn't within us. And, when understanding comics, it suggests that the others are shown in a realistic way, because if you look at Hergé, the way that Hergé would have really lovely backgrounds, whereas the characters themselves were a bit more simplified. The idea being that simplification allows us to transpose our own selves into these characters, if you know what I mean. But we talked about Phasmophobia, which is a game you've been enjoying. We talked about, just doing one thing at a time, and the fact that you don't like to have too many things in your to-do list. In fact, talked about curfews and dinner and drawing and Bobiverse, an interesting sounding book. Roller hockey, we talked about the Goblin Guard a wee bit. We talked about building houses, where your parents were building this house in Australia, which, no, it's not a thing that normally happens in Europe. But it seems like that's just, hey, we're going to build a family house. That's just a big thing in America and Australia. Because maybe
space for it, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We talked about studying animation and getting into Quick Flicks, which is basically the Australian Netflix, about meeting Elena, who inspired you to come over. And I was just going to find there's a picture of Elena, who is now your life companion, if I use that term.
Sure.
And Elena's wee shop, which is open on request if you're in Amsterdam, talks about being near a wee windmill, apparently, which sounds quite cool. We talked about finding jewels. I'm not sure what I wrote there. Sorry about that. We talked about Rookie, made by Polygon Treehouse. I really need to look at the paper when I'm writing in future, and just apologize. And our final thing, which is just start as soon as you can. Is there anything else which would feel the need to repeat?
No, just thanks for having me on. It's been really nice. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, virtually in this manner. And if you wish to ever, pop back on, quickly on a Friday to let us know, hey, this is what I'm up to, or show a couple of things, or maybe just, if you wish to that, you are always welcome. And if you want to check me out at this point, I will say that I am personally stuffbybez.com. It needs a bit of work, but that's my main website. Stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, where you can buy stuff. Twitter.com/stuffbybez, Instagram.com/stuffbybez. Facebook I need to fix, but Twitch.tv/stuffbybez, where you're probably watching, and I stream every day at 10 a.m. UK time. YouTube.com/stuffbybez for the old episodes. Stuffbybez.com/Discord, and please join the Discord. That will redirect you, and it will take you to the Discord where you can chat about game design or share pictures of games or things you've enjoyed recently, or share any pictures of cats. I feel like maybe, you know what, maybe I'll try and do some sort of, a daily drawing of a cat, and just as a wee thing. But if you want to check out Bodie, where do you most like to be found?
Probably on Instagram is where I'm most active, but any of those is good. Yeah.
Cool. And I want to say thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, Bodie. It's been lovely having you. Thank you to those who have been watching earlier on, people who are still watching and lurking. Just thank you very much. And we've got our final section that I always like to ask, which is over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. So, what are you going to get up to today, Bodie?
I said I love fantasy and everything I do is fantasy, but I'm finishing off an adventure for a TTRPG system called Mothership that a friend of mine wrote for me, and I've been doing the illustrations for, and that's been really fun to do something a little bit different. I mean, I'm definitely going back to fantasy. I haven't been converted, but I've been really enjoying drawing some spaceships and lasers and planets. It's been good.
Well, that sounds like it's going to be a nice distinction from you. I mean, for you. It reminds me of Stan Sakai. You might have seen me bigging up Usagi Ojimbo before, who's got Space Usagi, which is like there's 2 books about it that are kind of in the hypothetical future, where Usagi Ojimbo, instead of being in a feudal version of Japan, is in this futuristic version. And one of them I'm actually looking to see if I can. If there's the book. Senso is basically War of the Worlds, but sort of in feudal Japan. It's set at maybe in an alternate history in 50 years after, like basically, or whatever, after Usagi is kind of nearing the end of their life. This is and I'm going to show a non-spoilery thing where you see these characters like Chizu, the assassin, and here's like Chizu battling against a giant robot thing.
Wow.
But no, and it's just a lovely watercolor front there. Let me make myself bigger so people can see it a wee bit better. Senso, definitely recommended. Although I would say that it's also better to read if you actually, you know what? If you don't know Usagi Ojimbo, you will probably still enjoy it. If you're like, yeah, this is going to be a bit of silly fun. And if you do know Usagi Ojimbo, it's like, okay, wow, so that's how these characters end up. Even though it's not meant to be necessarily canon, it could as well be, because, okay, you kind of know the main protagonist of the story is never going to die. You kind of knew that anytime, let's be honest, anytime Usagi Ojimbo gets into a fight in the main series, you know that Usagi is never actually going to die. And there's certain characters like Katsuichi. There was, there have been some major characters killed, but there are always the second tier characters, let's say. Let's put it that way. And I would say there's certain points where it's okay, that, there's anyway, I'm not going to say any more than that. But you kind of get a sense of, oh, so that's how their relationship panned out. However many years into the future this is meant to be, with Usagi looking a lot older and their son. Anyway, child. So, if you want to, anyway, I was just saying that could be a whole, you do this a bit time and then you go back to fantasy, maybe you go back to sci-fi in the future.
Yeah, it's nice to mix things up, and learn some things.
If you want to check out my future streams for anyone watching, go to stuffbybez.com/streams. That will tell you that tonight I am going to be playing with wee whimsical creatures. If I can. Yeah, here's some of my wee whimsical creatures, which are these wee things. And I might actually start doing maybe some wee whimsical creatures, like one of them every day or something. Like just as okay, I'll do one of them a wee bit more detailed because these were drawn to be as quick as I could, like a minute or two each. But wee whimsical creatures, which is the game tonight, is all about making the noises of wee whimsical creatures. If that sounds fun to you, you can get involved on video. That's at 9 p.m. Central Eastern European Time, or 8 p.m. UK time, or 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 12 p.m. Pacific time, I want to say, if you're in the US. Anyway, but that's a thing that we're playing tonight for an hour. Tomorrow, I am making a game with Rita and Tiz. Thursday, 1st of April, it's about me, and Friday is Friendly Friday Forum, Chaotic Shenanigans on Saturday, which will probably be a bit of playing that online word game that I'm addicted to. I'll be reviewing some things on Sunday, probably some comics, and meeting a teacher on Monday and discussing development of board games with Rita, Alan Paul, and Matthew Dunstan next Tuesday. So that is what I'm up to for the next week. But check out the thing for the up-to-the-minute descriptions or whatever. And that brings me to the end of the show. If there's anyone who on Twitch we are going to raid, if there's anyone watching after the fact, this won't make much sense to you, but I like to check out which of our friends are streaming, and we are going to today raid Idol Michael, who is a lovely designer, friend of the show, and is apparently doing a wee bit of design today. So that is who I'm going to be raiding. And that brings me to the end of the show. Oh, and it's totally okay. I totally appreciate you listening in. I hope that it's been enjoyable, or even if you've just been able to listen into snippets, that's totally cool. It's never meant to be an obligation for you to chat or anything. Oh, if you don't send at least this many messages per minute, then you're not allowed to watch anymore. That's not what it's about, you know. But thank you very much for being part of it, Hal. And any last words from you, Bodie?
No, just it's been really nice. I feel bad, like I want to ask you questions too, but it's not.
Oh, it's all good. Don't worry. You'll get a chance to do that potentially on Thursday, which is going to be meeting. It's yeah. Ooh, okay. So that is the end of the show. Thank you, everyone. You have all been lovely. Have a good day. Enjoy whatever you're going to try to do. And what am I going to try to do today? I'm going actually Tuesdays, because Wednesday I have Chris helping me and making the schedule and stuff. I'm going to just make sure that I've written down all the descriptions for the next week of streaming. It feels like it does take a wee bit of time when you do 8 things a week. And yeah, I'm going to try and to catch up on social. What's actually on my to-do list? Possibly submit a few things to Board Game Geek, which I need to submit. Maybe spending a bit of time pondering a couple of games that I need to ponder a wee bit more, like the numbers and whatnot. But yeah, it'll be a fairly gentle day. I'm not going to stress myself too much. Maybe do a wee bit of writing for my book. I'm considering start as a way to give myself some commitment, writing a page or so every so often on Board Game Geek. I don't know if that's a good idea or a terrible idea, doing like the first draft as a series of blog posts of a book. What do you think, Bodie? Would that be a bad idea or?
Like a story? You're writing a story?
No, I'm writing it's a how-to book. It's basically a book about board game design and also just creative endeavors in general. A lot of it applies to just any creative endeavor. But yeah, should I just say, okay, this is the first draft, so it is going to be edited for the final thing, but just to help myself get through the first draft, I'm going to just write a new page every day on Board Game Geek and line it up, because you can schedule posts. Do you think that would be a reasonable thing?
It seems reasonable. I mean, if that works for you, like having it public and people commenting and stuff, I think it could be. And it's always nice to have like public accountability.
As long as people understand that the final book will be edited and everything. Like this is just the first draft, and hopefully people understand that. But yeah, you know what? You've convinced me. I am going to do that. I've already got enough written. I'm going to write the intro and get it out there. You know, the intro is probably everything else after the intro is going to be a letdown. I'm happy with the intro, but we'll see how it goes on. Hopefully it won't be too much of a letdown. I'll just write stuff and hopefully I'll be able to fit it in somewhere. Anyway, before I berate myself too much more, that's the end of the show. Lots of love. And for now, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. Why didn't my raid commands work? Raid idle meek L. Why did that not work? Huh. Oh, okay. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. And bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone. And this is... Now you can read... Oh. I will end. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.